Thunder cracks like a whip. The rain isn't falling. It is a relentless wall of water turning the dirt roads into rivers of mud. Under the concrete arch of an old bridge, a small figure huddles against a pillar. It is Diep. She shivers violently. Her cheap plastic raincoat is torn, leaving her soaked. She clutches her 6-month pregnant belly with both arms, desperate to generate warmth. Vance's safe house was compromised an hour ago. She had to run before the bounty hunters arrived. Now trapped by the storm, she waits for a miracle. Suddenly, tires screech on the wet asphalt above. A car door slams. Diep shrinks into the shadows, gripping a jagged rock. Is it Juan? The hunters? Footsteps scramble down the muddy embankment. Someone is sliding, running desperate. Diep! The voice is strangled by the wind, but Diep knows it. Her heart stops. A man stumbles into the shelter. He is drenched. His Italian leather shoes are caked in mud. His expensive suit clings to his body. It is James. Panic has stripped away his billionaire mask. He scans the dark space frantically until his eyes land on her. James, Diep whispers, teeth chattering. James lets out a half sob. He rushes to her, dropping to his knees in the mud right in front of her. I found you, James gasps, hands hovering inches from her face. Vance said the signal died. I thought they got you. Go away, Diep pushes his chest weakly. You can't be here. Juan will see the car. I hid the car, James grabs her freezing hands. My God, Diep. You're ice. He immediately strips off his suit jacket. Underneath, his white shirt is soaked and translucent. He wraps the heavy, warm wool jacket around her shoulders, pulling it tight like a cocoon. I don't need it. Diep tries to shrug it off. You'll get sick. Keep it on, James shouts, voice cracking. For once, just let me take care of you. Diep freezes. She looks at him. Rainwater drips from his hair. He looks miserable. He looks beautiful. She pulls the jacket tighter. It smells of cologne, rain, and safety. Why did you come? She asks softly. It's too dangerous. I couldn't watch the screen anymore. James wipes water from his eyes. I saw you eating that bread. I saw you sleeping on the ground. I hate it, Diep. I hate myself for putting you here. He looks down. She is barefoot. Her sandals broke miles back. Her feet are pale, wrinkled from the wet, and covered in cuts. James makes a noise of pure pain. Without a word, he sits back on his heels. He grabs the hem of his expensive dress shirt and rips it. Reap. He uses the dry fabric from the inside of the jacket to wipe the mud from her feet. His touch is incredibly gentle. James, don't! Diep pulls back. They're dirty. I don't care. James holds her ankle firmly. He rubs her cold feet between his warm hands, trying to restore circulation. I would wash them with my tongue if I had to, just to get you warm. Diep stares at him. The arrogance is gone. There is only a husband kneeling in the mud for his wife. The baby? Diep whispers. She was kicking hard when the thunder started. She's scared. James stops. He looks up. Can I? Diep nods. She guides his hand inside the oversized suit jacket, placing it on the warmth of her belly. For a moment, the storm ceases to exist. There is only their breathing and the heavy rhythm of the rain. Thump. A strong kick against James's palm. James closes his eyes, resting his forehead against her knee. Hi, he whispers to the bump. It's Dad. I'm sorry I'm late. Diep strokes his wet hair. You're not late. You're here. Suddenly, a bright beam of light sweeps across the riverbank below. James stiffens. He snaps his head up. Searchlights. They're sweeping the river, James hisses, pulling Diep up. Juan's men. They tracked my phone before I turned it off. What do we do? Diep clutches his arm. We have to go deeper, James says. There's an old drainage pipe 50 meters back. Vance marked it. I can't run, Diep winces, holding her belly. It hurts. You don't have to run, James turns his back. Get on. James, I'm heavy, Get on, James orders. Diep climbs onto his back. James grunts, shoes slipping in the mud, but he finds his footing. He carries his pregnant wife through the driving rain. They scramble up the bank, sliding into the darkness of the drainage tunnel just as the searchlight sweeps over their previous spot. Inside, it is pitch black and smells of rust. James sets her down on a dry concrete ledge. He collapses next to her, breathing hard. Safe, he gasps. Diep finds his hand in the dark. She interlaces their fingers. You ruined your shoes, she whispers. I'll buy new ones, James squeezes her hand. I can't buy a new you. He pulls out a soggy, crushed protein bar. Dinner, Diep laughs, a tear slipping down her cheek. They sit in the sewer pipe, a billionaire and a fugitive, sharing a wet protein bar while the storm rages. James, Diep asks, how long can we do this? Until I find the ledger, James says, voice hardening. Juan has a ledger of illegal dealings. If I get it, I can send him to prison. Then we are free. Do you know where it is? No, but Sophia does. Diep stiffens. Your ex-fiancée? The one coming to the house? She's a spy Juan hired to watch me. James turns to her. But if I can turn her, if I can make her double-cross him. She loves you, Diep says quietly. I saw how she looked at you in the magazines. I don't care who she loves, James kisses her knuckles. I only care about who I love, and she is sitting right here in a sewer. Suddenly, James's phone vibrates. He shields the light. Vance. Boss, Juan is calling. He knows you're gone. Get back, now. James curses. He knows. You have to go. Diep pushes him. If he finds out, he'll know you're with me. James grabs her face. I can't leave you here. I'll stay until morning, Diep promises. Vance will come. Go. Save us, James. James looks at her one last time. He kisses her, hard, desperate, tasting of rain and fear. I'll be back, he vows. He runs back into the storm, leaving his jacket wrapped around her. Diep watches him disappear. She pulls the jacket tighter, burying her nose in the collar. It's the only armor she has left. The black SUV tears down the highway. James grips the steering wheel until his knuckles turn white. The speedometer hits 140 km/h. He shivers violently, not from the cold, but from the image of Diep alone in that drainage pipe. I'll be back, he promised, but promises mean nothing if he gets caught now. He reaches the mansion gates. Vance is waiting in the guard booth, disguised in a raincoat. He opens the gate manually. James screeches to a halt, rolling down the window. The boat, James shouts. Arranged, Vance hisses. 3:00 a.m., Fisherman's Wharf. My shoes, James kicks off his muddy Italian loafers and throws them at Vance. Burn them, bury the ashes. They have red clay from the riverbank. If Juan sees that clay, he knows I was at the market. Vance catches the shoes. And your jacket, boss? You're missing your jacket. I lost it, James says grimly. In the fight. Vance nods. James drives through, leaving his loyal dog to clean up the mess. James enters the main hall. He is a mess. His hair is plastered to his skull. His white shirt is transparent, stained with brown river water. He walks barefoot across the marble floor, leaving wet footprints. He heads straight toward the stairs. Leaving so soon? The voice stops him dead. Mr. Hahn sits in a high-backed armchair, polishing his silver cane. He watches James with unblinking eyes. James turns slowly. I fell, he says, voice rough. I can see that. Hahn stands up, circling James. You look like you wrestled a pig. Where is the car? Garage, James lies. I parked it. And your shoes? Hahn looks at James's bare feet. Ruined. I threw them in the trash. And your jacket? Hahn taps James's shoulder with the cane. That was a bespoke Armani. $3,000. Did you throw that away too? James's mind races. He thinks of Diep wrapped in that wool jacket in the sewer. He needs a lie fast. "A beggar grabbed me," James improvises, injecting rage into his tone. "At the market, filthy woman. She grabbed my lapel, begging. I was so disgusted I shrugged it off and left it there. I didn't want her germs." Han stares at him. Silence stretches. He studies James's face for a crack in the mask. "You went to the market," Han states, "to find the girl." "I tracked the signal myself," James shouts. "I thought I had her. I saw a shadow by the river. I ran. I slipped down the bank. It was just a stray dog." He slams his fist against the wall. "I lost her again." Hoan watches the outburst. He sees the genuine pain in shaking hands. He interprets it as the rage of a defeated hunter, not the grief of a husband. "Passion," Hoan murmurs, smiling faintly. "I haven't seen you this passionate about business in years." Juan touches James's wet shirt, grimacing. "Go shower. You smell like failure and river mud." James doesn't flinch. "I want her found. Send the dogs tomorrow." "We will," Juan promises. "Go. Sophia arrives tomorrow morning. Be presentable." James walks up the stairs, keeping his back straight. He survived. The storm is relentless outside. Diep sits in the dark curve of the concrete drainage pipe. The water level rises dangerously close to the entrance. She is cold, but James's jacket saves her. It is heavy and dry inside. She huddles inside it like a tent. She feels something hard in the inner pocket. Her heart jumps. A phone? She reaches in. Her fingers brush cold metal. It's not a phone. It's a silver lighter. And next to it, a small velvet box. James must have forgotten it was there, or he carries it everywhere. Diep flicks the lighter. A flame illuminates the damp walls. She opens the box. It is the diamond ring, the one he gave her in the greenhouse. She gave it back for safekeeping. He kept it right next to his heart. Diep stares at the sparkling stone. It looks out of place here, surrounded by slime, a symbol of immense wealth in the hands of a fugitive. "We're going to make it," she whispers to the ring, slipping it on. "He didn't lose us." She clenches her fist to keep it safe. She curls up, using the jacket collar as a pillow. The smell of his cologne is stronger than the sewer. The rain stops, replaced by thick fog. 3 a.m. A small wooden sampan glides toward the pipe. The boatman uses a pole to push it silently. "Mrs. Diep?" a voice whispers. Diep wakes, holding a rock. "It's Vance," the voice says. Vance steps out of the fog with a flashlight. He looks exhausted. "Vance!" Diep collapses with relief. "Come," Vance extends a hand. James bought safe passage on a cargo barge heading south. It's safer than the huts. Diep climbs into the boat, clutching James's jacket. "How is he?" she asks. "Alive," Vance says grimly, rowing into the mist. But Hoan is tightening the leash. Sophia lands at 8 a.m. The game is about to get harder. Diep looks back at the city skyline. Somewhere in those lights, James is sleeping alone. "Tell him I have the ring," Diep says. "Tell him I'm wearing it." Vance nods. The boat disappears into the fog. James steps out of the shower. The hot water washed away the mud, but not the coldness in his bones. He walks into his closet. He reaches for a hanger and stops. He sees the empty space where his jacket used to be. He touches the air. He realizes suddenly, the ring. He left the ring in that pocket. Panic flares. That ring is worth a fortune. If someone finds Diep with it, then the panic subsides into calm. He didn't lose it. He returned it to its owner. He walks to the window looking out at the dark city. He presses his hand against the glass. "Run, Diep," he whispers. "Run far. I'll handle the monsters here." Behind him, his phone buzzes. A text from Han. "Car sent for Sophia. Be at the door in 4 hours. Don't disappoint me." James turns off the phone. The rural chapter is over. The war of wits begins.
Diệp mang thai 6 tháng trốn dưới gầm cầu trong cơn mưa bão và được Diêm liều mạng tìm thấy. Anh quỳ xuống giữa bùn lầy, dùng áo khoác sưởi ấm cho cô, xoa đôi chân rướm máu và đặt tay lên bụng con, thừa nhận mọi tội lỗi chỉ để bảo vệ vợ và con. Khi người của Hoang truy quét, Diêm cõng Diệp chạy vào cống thoát nước, rồi buộc phải quay về biệt thự để tránh lộ tung tích. Trước mặt Hoang, Diêm đóng vai kẻ săn mồi thất bại, che giấu việc đã giúp Diệp. Ở trong cống, Diệp phát hiện chiếc nhẫn cầu hôn Diêm giấu trong túi áo và tin rằng anh chưa bao giờ bỏ rơi cô. Rạng sáng, Van đưa Diệp lên thuyền rời đi. Hai người tách ra, Diệp chạy trốn để sống, Diêm ở lại đối đầu Hoang, mở đầu một cuộc chiến trí tuệ mới.